Hey, howdy. Well, this is going to be fun to explain. So, um, continuing my time-honored tradition of doing random things while yapping, I had kind of an idea. This is something I like to do a lot in my off time. This is a source mod called Momentum Mod that is really good. It's a compilation of a bunch of different game modes of like movement-based community game modes. So it's got like surf, b-hop, rocket jump, sticky jump, conk, which is a very old. This is a Team Fortress Classic thing, I think. That's where this originally came from. And defrag, which I haven't messed around with too much, and a-hop, which I think is more like Half-Life 2 physics, I believe. I don't know that for sure. But I play this. I play this a lot in my off time, just like as a way to unwind. But I think what I want to do is I'm just going to use this as yet another vector for yapping. I'm just going to go through all the tier 1s, a couple of the tier 2s, and kind of just talk. Talk while I do these. And you might notice, let me immediately do a little bit. So the times up in the corner, it saves your personal best. Now, I am decent at this game. I consider myself to be a fairly decent rocket jumper. However, I'm gonna look like I suck ass because the PB, I've managed to get some ridiculous PBs, and it just does a direct playback with, like, seconds and everything. I need to stop resetting. I need to just roll with my mistakes as they come. I love doing that opening rollout, it's fun. But yeah, I can just talk. So, things have been relatively fun. I've been at the crockpot, thinking about Deltarune theories, and I feel like I gotta slow my roll on that, like, a little bit, because as it happens, we're not getting more Deltarune for a while, and I think that last little bit that we got with the pink thing with, like, the egg and the friend, that's the most extra lore we're gonna get for a while, unless there's some kind of, like, charity event again. Because with Chapter 2, what ended up happening was the Spamton Sweepstakes that just gave a whole bunch of lore effectively out of nowhere. And there was such a long wait between Chapter 2 and Chapters 3 and 4 that, like, it was pretty badly needed. The community was getting feral, so they drip-fed in a lot of lore. And I seem to remember between Chapters 3 and 4 and Chapter 5, there was the Undertale 10th anniversary stream where there was a bunch of, like, scattered lore, but it was also just an excuse for Toby Fox to give, like, a behind-the-scenes thing about some of just the background stuff around Undertale. Which that was fun. I actually haven't seen the 10th anniversary stream. I should do that. But we got a while before we get, like, actual lore to chew on again, so I need to, like, take a step back, maybe stop thinking about Deltarune for a while and go do something else. Which is hard, because it's been a while, especially when it comes to like, video games, it's rare to have a game that has that much narrative meat to chew at. And there's so many layers, so much, like sickening amount of detail went into every aspect of this game. I should have just gone down here. It's so hard to recover when you lose time. You're better off just, like, going to a point where you can recover more easily instead of, like, trying to wall pogo and save face. But yeah, final time is 2:30, almost on the dot. Okay, that looks bad, but I mean, it's still 2:30. I feel like that's pretty decent. This is going to be an entire video of just my inadequacy, kind of, sort of. I feel like I rocket jump better than a lot of people, at least. But compared to my replays, everything's going to look like crap, because this is my replays of coming home from work and having nothing to do and spending, like, 2 hours at a time grinding out attempts. This bit, I want to get it at least once, because it's so cool. So you get this. I need to stop bonking on the ceiling there. So you get this, and then you fly over, and you sink up, and you completely skip that section. In the record attempt, I saw someone, like, do a really good sync from there, and then, like, it was so good that they hit the ceiling, and then they, like, fired a rocket at the ceiling to rebound off of it. It was so cool. I gotta show off some of those, some of the first place things at some point, because they were unbelievably impressive. I want to get, like, a clean... It's a fool's errand, because, like, this is... I'm already messing up more and more. Ah. One more attempt for the road, and then I'll just do it the long way. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Besides that, I've been of two minds recently for what I want to do with my spare time. Part of me kind of wants to start doing an Isaac mod again, just for old time's sake, but I also kind of want to get back into Love 2D, like I said I was going to. Something that I've been, like, grappling with these past few months is I've started realizing that I don't do well with, like, super heavy organizational guidelines. Like, I think they can work for me, but most of the time I end up just overwhelming myself. So what I've realized is, fun fact about Love 2D is that the way that the games are packaged is you can just, they're effectively just a zip file. So you can pop them open pretty easily. You don't even need to, like, rename the file. I believe if you just open it up in, like, 7-zip or something, it'll pop right open. And you can see every single file. It's completely uncompressed. So because of that, I've been able to pop open a few Love 2D games and see how they work on the inside. This is also the reason why you may have seen a bunch of mods for Balatro. That's the reason why, is because there's stuff like, it's really easy to make mod loader for Balatro because all of the code is just there. Which also means, and maybe this is a good thing, Love 2D will never be used by, like, a big corporate entity, because as it happens, corporate entities don't like it when people can just open up their game and poke around. Damn, that was a record. Okay. Rank 87 out of 1064. You're gonna notice that, like, the easier tier ones like this, Wagyu, Beef. Beef is, like, a famous super easy map, so a lot of them are, like, named in homage to Beef. There's another one down here called Cow. A lot of them are gonna have a ton of placements, and even as we go into the tier 2s, there's gonna be way less of them. Because any time that it does not have a time in the menu, that means that I have not actually beaten the map. Which, yeah, I mean, it's hard. Not much to really say there. And I figured out tricks for some of these earlier maps. But the bottom line is that this is just hard, and it's especially hard to do fast. And I've gotten kind of good at this, but there's still a lot of people who are way better than me. This is actually not a bad start, though. But yeah, so Love 2D, the thing that I've noticed is, like, there's some people that are really, really good at organizing their stuff. In particular, I want to shout out Evil Egg. Actually, like, really good, really clean code. You'd never know it because, you know, no one sees that stuff except the developer and, like, the, like, 5 or 6 people that mod Evil Egg. But, like, props to Ivy Slide. It's a very well put together game. And the more that I try and, like, create a facsimile of a Love 2D game using that same sort of structure, the more I realize that I don't really like it to. I was having more fun when it was just very, like, scattershot. I'll add things as I need them. I could always just organize it in such a way that it makes sense once the project is entirely done. And then just, you know, deal with the consequences later. Because I have Control F, I have regular expressions, I have, like, ways to navigate these big files in a way that almost makes big files a better deal than trying to stick everything into like a big file system. The only thing that ever comes up is Lua has a variable limit, and this is something I figured out when I was making Antideus, that like Isaac RPG thing. Was Lua has a I want to say the limit is 250 variables, might be closer to like 100. I know that's a big difference for variables, but regardless. I was hitting that limit with Antideus, and I tried to like find a workaround, and the main thing that I found about it is like basically a bunch of people saying like, you're an idiot, just refactor the code. You should under no circumstances be hitting that limit unless you're doing something very wrong with your code. But come to find out, the reason why they believe that is because they all have the like hyper organized like file cabinet structure to their code. Which, not saying one version is better or worse than the other, but it's just I'm more comfortable with the scattershot stuff, so I think that's what I'm gonna roll with. Oh yeah, I should probably, come to think of it, I should probably explain some of these tricks that I'm doing, because I just realized I've kind of just been talking and not explaining anything. So this is all based on TF2 like source engine physics. Can always, I always forget whether the like different iterations of the source engine for the different games are themselves different engines. I know obviously Source 1 and Source 2 are different. I think there is like a bunch of differences between the TF2 one and the CS and the CS:GO one. I think the CS2 is entirely different because it's running on Source 2. That was not amazing, but again, like my time for beef is crazy. Haze. This one, it says SJ for sticky jump. I could actually use this as a good opportunity to show off how these jumps work. So, the most generic thing that you can do, it's basic like rocket jumping, is you crouch just before you jump so that it moves your hitbox lower to the ground, and then you jump right as you start a rocket jump so that you gain more vertical momentum. So you end up with something like that. And there's all sorts of weird little tricks that have to do with the way that the Source engine does things, and how vectors stack on top of each other and stuff like that. So what I could do is, I set this up right. I did that wrong. And I have to reset because there's no kill planes in this map because this is a sticky jump map. So all the kill planes are turned off. You can sync the rockets together and gain a bunch of speed. And you can also like slide up ramps, and there's a whole bunch of other wacky things you can do. Like if you time a rocket, you can do that. If you time a rocket just before you hit the ground, you can kind of like glance off the ground. The term for that is a speed shot. Speed shots are really, really, really helpful if you're going for like fast times, but they are tricky. It is, I'm not gonna say frame perfect, but it's like a frame precise trick. And the more of those you chain together, they start to get really inconsistent really quickly. There's also the concept of, water is a whole other thing, because water like keeps you buoyant, and also there's a bunch of weird properties with how while you're in the water, you are technically not on the ground, but also you're technically not on the ground, but also you can trick the game into effectively like you are on the ground. So you end up getting a huge boost just by being in like ankle-high water, because the game thinks you're on the ground. The game thinks you're off the ground, but you're super close to the ground, and then you can shoot a rocket, and the game is like, oh, you need a lot of velocity. There's a lot of source spaghetti that I don't fully understand. The only other thing is pogos. This map has quite a few of those. So there's a lot of nuance with, like, glancing your rockets off the ground in order to preserve in order to A, preserve momentum, and B, like, get over places that you're not typically supposed to exist. Like, you'll see a couple of these later where there's like kill planes that I'm able to like pogo on top of. Like, not this, but I think, like, coming up. Yeah, you can do like that. That was cool. You can kind of, like, bounce off of the wall. Preserve that vertical momentum. Ah, damn it. Almost had that. Beautiful. This is what I was thinking of. So these will teleport me back if I touch them, but I can pogo and go directly across them. And it's a little finicky. But that's most of rocket jumping is a little finicky, especially with like these little flick jumps that I do to gain a little bit extra momentum. I can compensate for it a little bit by bouncing off walls near the end, but spacing is always kind of a tricky point to deal with. Oh my god, I can't believe I made that. Whoa. But yeah, I feel bad about my current Love 2D relationship, especially because Linux kind of threw a wrench in the plans a little bit, because Linux does not really play well with all of this. There's this odd issue that I've been finding with Wine, where if I run it through like Wine in the terminal, then it'll be fine, but the built-in Wine that is seemingly a different program, the like compatibility layer that runs off of Debian Linux, certain programs will crash every other time that I run it. That there will be like, it'll work fine the first time, and the second time it will freeze instantly, and then I kill the program with Linux's equivalent of the task manager, and then launch it, everything works fine, until I close it and reopen it, and then the same problem will come up. So I need to like figure out a long-term fix for that. This is kind of an annoying jump. Kind of awkward. There's a lot of repeated jumps and repeated movements, which can be a little grating at times, but I don't really mind it. I forgot you could favorite maps. I had a moment. There might be some missing textures in here because I don't have CS:GO installed, but the map itself functions identically. I also have no idea where I'm going because I don't do this map very often. But yeah, besides that, I've kind of just been... The only other thing that's come up is just, like, thinking about politics, which, like, I don't really have much to say there. It's just... It's a whole situation. I never really feel like mentioning politics in these kinds of videos, because it's like... Everything that I could potentially say, I've either said in private with other people, or it has been said by people that are more intelligent about political commentary than I am. So it's like, if you want that kind of information, you should probably go there instead. Just, you know, do your due diligence, don't fall for, like, scams or grifters, or people who are intentionally keeping you in the dark for whatever reason. But unfortunately common in politics. But my concern is always just that it doesn't age super well, unless it's, like, a big, like, Marie Antoinette adjacent event. So, like, usually I'm probably not going to... That's some fun Z fighting. I'm probably not going to mention politics unless there's something, like, truly huge ends up happening that will, like, rock the world. But again, at that point, you probably heard that before, alright? There we go. Oop. Oh, where am I? Okay. I was confused, a little confused there. Let's see how I do this. The trouble with this map is that it's going to be really hard to tell how far behind I even am. Okay. Yeah, look at how rocky that is near the end. Just... Here's my damn self. Let me actually... Hang on. Is there a way to... Local me. There we go. Let's see if I can... Let's watch the replay. This was, like, marginally better. But this is something that I absolutely love about Momentum Mod, is that you can, like, pause, or you can, like, skip to a specific part. Oh god, that was flashing lights. Sorry about that. But you can, like, scrub through the footage, you can pause, and, like, speed up and slow it down on specific jumps if you're, like, trying to figure out how you're supposed to do something. And something else in that same breath is that you can look at the globals. Let's see what the top person is doing here. This is a completely different ball game. And this user's sacrifice, I've seen them all over the place on these lower tier maps. They are crazy good at this. Because something worth mentioning is that you can play a low tier map in a high tier way. And that's usually how they get these crazy good times. It's just like putting in like sinks and speed shots everywhere to optimize down the time. Like, look at that. That's crazy. And most of the records for these low tier maps are like this. And this is like more reserved compared to some of the nonsense I've seen. Yeah, let's try linear. And I won't reset too much, but just like for the first jump or so, just like get a decent attempt going. Ooh. Hey, that's cool. What the hell? Sometimes it doesn't even feel like I'm the one jumping. That was a crazy good jump. And I forgot that wall is not solid. That is kind of a common complaint I have with some of these maps, is that it's hard to tell what maps are, what walls you can actually fire rockets at and which ones you can't. Speed shots are always kind of obnoxious, especially this one because the ceiling is so low. There we go. And sinks, something worth noting about sinks is that usually sinks have 2 rockets, they can have more. I've seen some of the ridiculous high tier maps have like, they go up to like 5, I think I've seen 6 even. There is some nutty setups in some of the higher tier maps where it's like, I cannot finish a single jump, much less do it quickly. Because the jumps are like 5 rocket sink, and then 3 speed shots in a row, and then a down pogo. Let's see if I can, okay. You can kind of cheese this jump if you like brush against this and kind of like twirl onto the platform. But you can just do that too. Damn it. This is the waist deep water I was talking about. If you just jump once, then already you get way more height. And then if you can combine that with a sink, you go flying. Oops. Didn't realize that crossed over. Beautiful. Oh, nice. Those down pogos can be deceptively difficult, especially when it's not like a simple like shelf that you're navigating around. Those can get really, really hard. All right. Yeah, this is one where I kind of want to get a good start going, because my PB on this map is ridiculous. So I'm probably going to be way behind, but it's fine. Pogos can also be kind of weird because, like, look at the spacing on this. Unless you are really good at controlling your rockets, you have to tap S. Because something worth noting, and this is, like, rocket jumping 101, you do not normally hold W. Because, like, if I were to hold W, I don't know how I even would, but it caps your speed. And this is a common source, a little bit of, like, source nonsense for why this happens. It's, like, if I understand correctly, the W key, not only does it give horizontal movement, but it also caps your horizontal speed while it's doing that. But if you get that horizontal speed from other sources without pressing W, then your speed will stay uncapped. So you end up in this weird situation where if you press and hold W, it will just gimp your speed. Sometimes you want that, like when you're doing a wall climb. Most of the time you don't. So most of the time you avoid pressing W if you can help it. Now S, on the other hand, has no drawback, especially if you're just using it as a handbrake. So that's usually, if you need to do like micro adjustments, that is the best thing you can do. Yeah, look at, I didn't even think I was doing that badly, but look at the time. That's 2 minutes. I always pop out the wrong side there. Look at that. I wasn't even doing that bad, but that was just that leap there. I don't know what you did past me, but you did well, whatever it was. Nepal. This is one of those, some of these maps are designed as speed maps, and you can do some really wacky shit. I'm gonna try and like give it a few attempts, and if I don't hit it, it's fine. But it's that ramp over there that I'm trying to hit. Please? No, not quite. This is one of those things, it's like, I always get a sense of, watching an old friend play, fighting games. Like, I was watching, there was an old friend, might not be the best term, because we parted ways on kind of acrimonious terms. An acquaintance of mine was watching him play Dragon Ball FighterZ, and this memory will always stick with me of him just labbing the exact same. I think it was Frieza. I don't know enough about Dragon Ball to really corroborate characters. I think it was Frieza, but just labbing the exact same combo over and over and over and over again for like an hour. And I just had this thought of like, are you having fun? And from what I could tell, the answer was yes, but like I enjoy games in such a different way that like the only reason why I enjoy this is that there's nothing else to this game besides just labbing out movement. Like, it's an isolated space where you just get really good at movement. I can just roll with this. I didn't even hit the sink, but I can kind of, like, re-maneuver this and gain some speed back. Bah. I can never tell how to keep speed at this ramp, because that is just a flat floor. But I just had a moment of like, are you having fun doing that? From what I can tell, he was, but I was never sure. Damn it. Okay, hang on. Ah, I didn't even hit the sink. Whatever. You can fly right over this if you're fast enough. And then you can just surf that ramp all the way up to the top. It's very cool. I could probably... Let me actually finish this attempt, and then let me show the replay. Local... Yeah, 54 seconds. I've gotten under... There's very few maps that I've managed to get under a minute. This is one of them. But look at that. This is... You just fly forward and then use that ramp. And then this is the bit that I was able to do even after whiffing that first part. I don't think I hit the ramp down there correctly, but I could be wrong. I think I tried for a sink there, which kind of works, but I didn't even hit it. And this, if you're fast enough, you can sail right over that. I was not fast enough. And then there you go. Skip right over it. And then let's do Rush. This is like classic map. Look at the creation date on this is 2008. This is an old map, like one of... I think it's one of the first, like, popular... one of the first, like, commonly used TF2 jump maps. Because there were quite a few of the conch maps, the, like, concussion grenade. I'm not even gonna bother with the concussion grenade though, because I am not good enough at it yet. I've been trying to get better, but oh my god, it's hard. the skill set is entirely different. But yeah, I was talking about Love 2D. Part of the issue as well is like the saying goes that ideas are free. And the implementation is not. I have so many ideas rattling around in my head of like things that I could be making and things like I fear I will just end up doing stuff like this again for another few hours, and it's like, damn. I probably have ADHD. I need to get that looked at some point. But today's not that day. And I've gotten pretty good at mitigating it. Because I mean, obviously it doesn't entirely go away, but like I've figured out enough of how to get my brain to tick that I can actually function. Though it is weird that within the bounds of what I remember about the DSM, that would mean that I would not need treatment, which is wild to me. Because that is something that I always did not understand about the DSM. If you've never heard of the DSM, this is a very old map, by the way. The DSM is a handbook used by psychologists for diagnosing and treating psychological disorders. And the trouble with the DSM is that the trouble with a lot of psychology is that it has to grapple with its roots way more than a lot of other scientific fields, because for a while psychology was kind of just not a scientific field, and it's like a modern recontextualization that psychology has had to do to itself because psychoanalysis nearly tore it to shreds. So psychoanalysis started under Freud, and it continued under Carl Jung with the collective unconscious and like modern reinterpretation of psychoanalysis. The trouble is that psychoanalysis, I think I've ranted about this before, but psychoanalysis is not a very hard science. It is... I think the conversation that I was having a bit ago was comparing generative AI and like that whole school of thought to things like psychoanalytics and string theory, and how it's like at a certain point it is just manipulating ethos to get people to trust you, and then making sweeping generalizations using what is basically astrology in psychology. The trouble is that, like, it was widely accepted, and it is unfortunately the backbone of a lot of, like, psychology and, like, therapy. A lot of it stems back to psychoanalytics. And that concept that... Because previously it was even more grim, and there was that idea that just a lack of control of the mind was the issue. And the only option was, like, the nuclear option of, like, horrible treatment. With the idea that, oh, you know, there's no other way because the person is acting irrationally. Psychoanalysis almost solved that, and had the logic of, it's not the conscious mind that's doing those things, it's the unconscious mind, which is, like, marginally better, still not great. There's still a lot of hand-waviness of, like, oh, your subconscious is doing something and you have no control over it, but I can help you. Very easily, like, very easy places for abuse of power, and that's exactly what happened. Also a lot of like, abusive notation and using the tools of psychoanalysis for political options, like what ended up happening with Wortham and the Comics Code. This jump sucks, by the way, I hate it. If I bonk against the top of this window, then it doesn't let me through, so I kind of have to do, like, a really shallow jump. There we go. Just get right on the lip. That is gonna tank that's gonna tank this attempt. Yeah, that was 48 seconds. These rocketable? They are. Ooh. But the DSM has a lot of those same hang-ups, and the way that it, like, treats psychological disorders as, like, something that must be fixed. And that's something that in more recent iterations of psychology, people have tried to, like, do away with almost entirely. A great example of this is Psychonauts. And I know, like, maybe it's a little trite to bring up a video game when I'm talking about, like, real-world psychological disorders, but bear with me. So, the way that therapy is handled in the first Psychonauts compared to the second is really different. Also, hang on, let me show off an Easter egg. Like, 1, 2, 3, 4. Prepare yourself for a flashbang. That sounds like a joke, but I'm being dead serious. Good lord. That's a carryover from the initial version of the map, and I think down there is the control point where you were actually able to finish the map initially. They made it so that the ending section is just this box up here, so you don't have to destroy the floor every time. Which is cool. Let's see if I can, like... Nah, not quite. But yeah, the DSM... even nowadays, it kind of has that problem of therapy for the sake of diagnosis, for the sake of treatment, for the sake of, like, curing issues. And that's what it boiled down to in Psychonauts 1, that it was, like, at least, it was, like, hearing out the different minds, and hearing out, like, people's hang-ups and people's problems, but then kind of just trying to fix them. And after a certain point, especially when you get into the disorders that aren't necessarily disorders, that starts to become a huge ethical concern. The biggest one being gender dysphoria, funnily enough. That's always been a huge hang-up, in part because psychoanalytics is deeply, deeply, deeply misogynistic. It's not usually the kind of thing I bring up directly, but, like, oh my god. It is, like, kind of unignorable, the kinds of things that Freud, like, talked about as if it was common fact, about how, like, hysteria was caused by inflammation of the womb and shit like that, and it's like, This is not science. What you're talking about is not, like, objectively is not science. It's just something you made up on a coke bender and are now telling other people that what you're saying is correct because you made kind of a cool theory about dreams. You can go off of that. Cool, I didn't know that. But you end up in a situation of, like, I mean, obviously, conversion therapy is, like, an unfortunate side effect of that, but also that whole conversation of, like, what is the role of a therapist? Is it to fix someone, or is it to help them deal with issues on their own terms? The latter is what psychology has kind of evolved into, and I feel like that's a lot healthier. Because the bottom line is that a lot of psychological disorders are not debilitating, but they are still something that should be addressed. Or at the very least, like, there's this concept that there is a normal person. There's a normal person who has no psychological disorders whatsoever, and there is, like, an aspiration to be that person. And in the case of Freud, that was the what's it even called? It's the Übermensch. It's like that perfect version of yourself that has no flaws and no disorders, and you should always try and, like, reach that point. Well, here's the problem. In doing that, especially because developmental disorders exist, but also because there's a whole slew of other disorders that make you who you are. So your aspiration is not you anymore. It's some like random, air quotes, normal person that has been made up by a therapist, and you're aspiring towards a completely different person and becoming someone that you're objectively not. That is something that has been, like, still kind of lurks around the corners of psychology. And again, especially when it comes to gender dysphoria, so I ended up reading up about this, and I mean, the unfortunate truth about gender dysphoria is that there's not a lot of, like, research-backed primary source case studies about this stuff, because, surprise, this stuff does not get funding. I mean, you wonder why. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of transphobia. Also, it's a relatively new thing to have, like, proper medical HRT. So it kind of makes sense that there's not a lot of research into it, but, like, come the fuck on. There's a very good reason why a lot of this stuff does not have fielded research, and that reason is prejudice. So I ended up finding a primary source that was, I believe the website is called genderdysphoria.fyi. It's either that or genderdysphoria.info. I do not remember off the dome. But hey, if you're ever questioning your gender, that is a really good resource because it goes into a lot of detail. Though, again, caveat, it's all first-hand accounts, not necessarily backed up by scientific research, but again, like, what scientific research? But anyway, there was a whole conversation in there about gender dysphoria and how, like, a lot of those conversations have, like, evolved over time. And in particular, how specific psychologists have tried so desperately to associate gender dysphoria as being a fetish thing. And how that has also kind of bled over into how gender dysphoria is treated, both the people that have it and also the affliction itself. If you can even call it an affliction, is the thing. Like, that's a whole other conversation. Is, like, is gender dysphoria a disorder? A lot of people would say that it just straight up isn't. Frankly, I would tend to agree with that. Because, looping back to the DSM, something that is very interesting, but also causes problems, is the way that the DSM defines a disorder. Is that it is a disorder has to concretely and negatively affect your life in a way that you cannot solve on your own. Now, breaking that down, that causes a lot of problems in terms of, like, you should not be having to say he said, she said with your therapist, but that's often what ends up happening. Because you end up in a lot of conversations of like, well, you know, I firmly believe that that I need treatment or some kind of like medicine, maybe some kind of like HRT comes to mind, where it's like, I feel like I need this because of XY reason. And depending on the therapist, some of them, from what I understand, will just look at you and say, well, I don't see it, personally. It's an interesting thing to try and like interrogate. And I'm gonna be real, part of the reason why I've been like looking into this so much is that I may or may not be having a therapy session on, I think, Thursday. And I've just been like rotating these ideas in my brain. Because I remember one of the many paths that I was considering that I did not end up going for was, I took a course in psychology in college. And I also took a AP course of psychology in high school. And they were both, like, consistently some of the most interesting classes I've taken. Thankfully, I am not the type of person who, takes psychology and philosophy classes because I want to learn how to manipulate people. There is an entire breed of person like that, and they are, well, if you couldn't tell from just me saying it, they are insufferable. They are, like, truly awful people. And it's unfortunate that it's the same kind of people who, like, go into learning about, like, Latin and Greek because they are super, almost, like, concerningly into the military history. I feel bad associating an entire flock of people with... Hang on one sec. Felt a buzz. Yeah, there you are. Sorry about that. I hope that didn't pick up on the mic, but I have my phone on my desk over there. There's an entire sect of people who are super, super, super into Roman history and, unfortunately, also, like, German history and, like, the Age of Empire types, which there are plenty of people who play Age of Empires that are not like this, but there's an amount of people that are absolutely like this. My apologies to the people who like Age of Empires that have to deal with those people. But it's a similar kind of thing. There's an entire set of people who who, like, enter psychology because it is the, like, theater of the mind, and because they want to get good at selling stuff. And I feel like that also, that leads into game theory as well, and how there is this excellent, excellent video by Jorbs, Slay the Spire content creator, very, very, very well-spoken dude. Talks a lot about, like, Slay the Spire, but also, like, game theory. He used to be a competitive poker player and a competitive Magic player, and, like, talks about his experiences with that. There is this amazing video of his where he talks about manipulation and how people, especially in strategy game spaces, there are often times where they will forget that there is a person on the other side of the screen, and sometimes we'll just use that as an advantage point. And how it's not right. It's a very, very cool video. It's like, as a result of actual harassment that he received, and it was like, it's such a cool guy move, genuinely, to, like, deal with that shit with grace, and then also put out, like, a 2-hour-long dissection of, like, manipulation and abuse in the strategy game sphere. It's... Love it. I love that. Was such a badass way to handle it. And most of that's wrapped up now, thankfully. But every once in a while, there'll be an issue like that that'll pop up, and I look over at my YouTube recommended as, oh, another 50-minute PowerPoint presentation. I wonder what this time. I say that with only love in my heart. I always love watching those. But lost my train of thought a little bit. But there was a point in time where I was genuinely considering going into psychology and like therapy and like doing stuff like that for a living. I decided against it in the end because I'm just not. I am a deeply anxious person, and I feel like I would not be able to do therapy super well. I also probably would not be able to be a psychologist, like in that same breath. I am not amazing when talking with people, and to be completely honest, part of the reason why I started the channel in the first place was to get practice. Practice with public speaking, practice talking with, like, the ambiguous Greek choral audience. And, I mean, it's worked pretty well. I've been told by my boss at work that I'm very good at explaining things, and I can't help but thank this channel for being the reason why. I'm also way better at not stuttering. Still not amazing. I stutter quite a bit at times, especially when I'm getting overexcited by stuff. But I'm better at it. I've also heard that, like, literature helps a lot when it comes to stuttering. Just, like, having more words that you can pull out of a hat reduces the, just like probabilistically, I guess, reduces the chance that you're going to find nothing. The more vocabulary you have in your memory banks, the smaller the chance that you'll come up empty, which I suppose makes sense. Ooh. Oh, right, those walls aren't solid. Alright, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do home, and then I'm gonna stop here, and then maybe next time I do this, I can do some of the tier 2s. I'm not gonna promise that I'll do all of these tier 2s, because, like, I mentioned very briefly, but some of these don't have times, because I have not cleared some of these, and some of the, even when you get to the tier 2s, some of these maps are just mean. I don't think there's one in this map specifically, but there is a concept called a bounce, and it's, if I'm going back and doing more of these, you will see bounces next time. Bounces suck. Bounces are, like, emblematic of everything I don't like about some of these map designs, because it is a bug in the way that Source handles collision with surfaces that have those, like, teleport kill planes on them. Effectively, what happens is, if the kill plane is, like, flush enough with the words. If the kill boundary is, like, flush enough with the actual collision, and you time a rocket right, you can send yourself up on the exact frame that you collide with the kill plane and ignore it. And the result of that is a very, very tricky, like, frame-precise trick, where the end result is, oh, hey, by the way... But this is a triple. Okay, never mind, that makes more sense. That's why I was getting the height. It's like, oh, hey, by the way, this is a frame-perfect trick. Have fun. There we go. But there's one jump, I think it's concrete? I don't remember the name of the jump off the top of my head. That ends with a bunch of those really obnoxious types of jumps all in a row. And it's like, come on. Really? You're really doing that? Okay. Barely nicked the side of that. It was perfect. I might be able to save time if I get this quickly. Almost, shoot. I am sitting here thinking about what I'm going to do after this. Because, by the way, maybe I'll mention this next time, but just so I don't forget. The creator of this map specifically, Situde, is like kind of the coolest person ever. She created so many of these early maps, and all of the a lot of the conventions of modern rocket jump maps you can trace back almost directly to her and the way that she designed these kinds of like older maps. And I don't like all of the things that kind of like trickled over into more conventional map design because of her, because she's also the one that normalized stuff like quad jumps at the end of maps and quad sinks, excuse me, at the end of maps, and bounces being like moderately common. But I can't deny how much of an influence she had, and low-key this source mod would probably not exist if she did not make her maps. So I am endlessly grateful. Oop. No. But yeah, bounces are obnoxious. Some of these jumps are very neat, though. Like with this one, you have to shoot down, wait for it. Hang on, I can't talk while that's happening. I need to time it properly. There we go. And there's your sink. There are some particularly devious jumps with those with moving platforms that you sink off of, or not sink, you pogo off of. Excuse me. One of the famous ones is Jump Cuba. Is like a really, really, really well-known map with like multiple sections and a bunch of like cool, unique jump archetypes. One of them is like this really long path. Ah, barely. This really long, like, snake-like path with platforms that will move along it, and you have to pogo off of those platforms and, like, stick with them for, like, roughly a minute solid of just pogoing and making sure you don't fall off. Damn it. I'm doing this right, it's just tricky. It's kind of in an awkward spot for the rockets. There we go. That's beautiful. Nah. It's a very weird thing. It's a very weird hobby to have. Oops. Hello. It's a very weird hobby to have because, like, something that I've learned when playing multiplayer games is to not really, like, try my best not to engage with games like this that have multiplayer elements. By games like this, what do I mean? So, source mod games and, like, games of a similar ilk that have old blood multiplayer communities, unless you're willing to put in the time, they are very difficult to get into because everyone who's been playing has been playing for a very long time. And they know all the odds and ends, and especially in like a arena, this is the unfortunate reason why the arena shooter genre kind of is in a weird state right now, is that everyone who plays arena shooters is like very, 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 very good at it. So it's hard to get into it. It's like fighting games have kind of a similar issue, where it's like the people who play fighting games are really good at fighting games, so at a beginner level, it's kind of hard to find other people at the beginner level. You do find, like, veteran players who are willing to teach, but they're not, like, they are relatively uncommon. If you know where to look for them, they can be great friends. There we go. That pogo's very weird. But look at this time difference. Like, I kind of fumbled a little bit, But like that time difference is crazy. 3 minutes? Beautiful. And this last jump is free. Okay, so this is one of my favorite types of jumps, is just a really long strafe. I need to show Jump Spaghetti at some point. I will probably not finish it because that map is crazy hard, but there is one bit that is a really it's like a 20 of those panels in a row of a strafe. It's so funny, and every single one of those panels has a text pop up for part of the. I think it's Jump Spaghetti. I think the different steps are like steps on cooking spaghetti or something like that. That I think was also a seeded map. That was more of like a meme map. Let me see if I can try this bonus, and if I can't hit it in like relatively quick time, then I'll stop myself. Something else worth noting, by the way, is like I play this game a lot. The level system, I got like roughly 1,000 XP for completing a map that I've completed before and not getting a record. I have 7.4 million XP. So like do the math on that. I would probably be getting more per attempt if I got like a record or something. But I play this game a ton. And it's free. I mean, free asterisk. It's still in playtest technically. Like I can absolutely drop a link in the description if you are interested in trying it, because it's so fun. It's so fun. There we go. And now I just need to hit the sync. Oh god. It's like the view of someone getting hit by a dodgeball. Jeez. 5 more attempts, let's say. I can get this. Ah, barely. Alright, one more attempt and then I'm stopping. Oh, damn it. Hang on. Bonus 2. Let me show you you're actually supposed to do this. And oh, nice. Beautiful. Oh yeah. That's all I got for now, I think. This was fun. I would love to do this again sometime, because it looks like Home, Elephant Canyon. There's a bunch of tier 2s down here. Some of them I kind of like crawled my way across the finish line, like Quattro, Twix, I like crawled across the finish line. Aura, I crawled across the finish line. Any of these that are more than 5 minutes, that was like ones that I just kept beating my head against until they eventually gave. Concrete, I think, is the one that ends with a bunch of stupid jumps all in a row. But I'll like pick out a few of these that are fun. Sketchy is so fun. This is like one of my favorites. And then there's a bunch of beta maps as well that are like, some of these are kind of janky, but they're all fun. A lot of these are like direct ports of old rocket jump maps, or like maps with special gimmicks, or sometimes you end up with stuff like B-hop Badwater that's just a direct port of Badwater for B-hopping and rocket jumping. But yeah, I'll think of something. But yeah, that's all I got for now. Thanks so much for watching, y'all.